All right, here he is, one of my heroes, who is I think you're one of my maybe my only hero who is younger than me, but definitely somebody I look up to, and well, with the exception of Quincy Jones, but haven't got him on yet. But anyway, this is Evan Aldo here.
Yep.
Just
Well, thanks. Pleasure to be on. Always nice to be on and talk about crypto. Always spreading the word. I'm flattered that you view me as a hero. So glad if you learned something from me.
Yeah, man, I love watching your channel. I really love traveling. It's kind of something that's just really a goal of mine, especially in the future. I love to turn on your channel or see you on social media and just see where's Evan Aldo, where in the world is Evan Aldo today? So
Oh yeah.
I saw you at XRP Vegas. I think you were with Paul Barron, but you guys were so busy I didn't get a chance to say hey. And then I think I saw you at one of the after parties. But I just wanted to interview you and just see, what it's like a day in the life of Evan Aldo and just get some of your takes on the market and your lifestyle as a trader and what's the term you use? The digital nomad, is that right?
Right now, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's the most sustainable long term, avenue of life, but yeah. I mean, I go to a lot of different places. Generally, stay in each place about a month. Well, I've been in Thailand close to 2 months now. I'll be in Singapore for Token 2049, so I got to work it out. Between some of the conferences. I was in Bitcoin Vegas, XRP Vegas. Do a couple of those a year. Space things out there, and I kind of move my time between Asia and Latin America. For people wondering about a digital nomad, lifestyle, it's not the most sustainable thing. Like, I wouldn't recommend doing it for more than, a few years. Like, probably eventually try to buy a place or, pick places that you really like. I mean, there's a lot of, places in the world. And, you look at kind of where we are in history. And I was listening to like a Ray Dalio interview, like, I don't know, a month ago, pretty recently. And he was saying, like, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, most of the places in the world, you couldn't just go to like Dubai. You couldn't just go to parts of Malaysia. You couldn't, I mean, technology wasn't there. It wasn't as at the, I don't want to say developed. It wasn't as easily accessible or easily livable as it is now. And you kind of see where we are in history with a lot more development throughout the world. So we're in one of those kind of, I think, very important turning points kind of in history. And I think you'll see more and more of that through the next, 20, 30 years. I don't want to say, America's going to ultimately lose its place as the world power and things are going to be that crazy. But, you got to pay attention to, what's kind of going on in the world, I would say.
Well, very cool. Well, we're going to get into some of your advice on traveling and things like that. Let's start at the very, very beginning. Evan, when did you first hear about crypto? When was the actual first time, and how did you get in?
I was into Bitcoin a tiny bit at the bottom around the bottom in 2014, but that wasn't, it was more hobbyist, or just, I was kind of turned off by it because that was Silk Road days. That was the big, now he's not even in prison anymore. So, I mean, that's, a much different time now, but, it was Silk Road days. It was, mainly people not using it for the best of things. I dabbled around in it in that bull run up to, I know you talked about, before we started recording that you dabbled around in that bull run up to 2017, 2018. I was very young at the time. I was only like 18, 19, 20. So, I mean, I didn't have much money to put into it. I made some money with it, but very minuscule for, compared to now, 10 years later and all that. So I knew about that cycle, and then I knew kind of the 4 year cycle, and I learned the 4 year cycle kind of from that cycle, and I was able to apply a lot of that in 2020 and 2021, which was nice. And that's where I would say I got more serious into crypto and actually was able to, make a sustainable, amount of money to last some time. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So you would consider yourself, for our viewers maybe who don't know you, would you consider yourself a day trader? Is that the right term?
I specialize more in swing trading, but I do all types of that. I'm a technical analyst, a chartist. I mean, I tell when I meet people abroad, I tell them like I'm a data analyst or a finance guy or whatever. Depends, but day trading, yeah. I mean, most of my trades are more swing trades. I think those are generally. I mean, it depends. Pick your poison, but I think those generally are the easiest to kind of learn for the average person because it kind of forces you to have patience to begin with because you kind of have to wait. And I mean. If you argue like what people do in the Fourier cycle and all that, that's a very extended kind of form of swing trading as well, based on history, based on other patterns. So, I would say trading is kind of just macro DCAing, macro kind of hedging, or excuse me, micro DCAing, micro kind of hedging your bets to a certain extent. So, yeah, I'm a long-term investor, and mainly a big part of my income is from swing trading. I do day trading, scalp trading as well, but swing trading is what I like the most. I think that's the easiest. So yeah.
Very cool. I consider myself a hodler, and then a couple times throughout my, 9 years, I've made some moves where it was kind of considered a trade, I guess, but I'm more of a hodler, so it's always interesting to watch what you do and some of the other traders I follow, like
Mhm.
Blockchain Backer. I got to meet at XRP Vegas and people like that. So interesting to me. So you travel the world as a trader. What's a day in the life of Evan Aldo like? Like, where are you right now? What do you do every day?
So I'm in northern Thailand right now, which is, if you Google good popular digital nomad spots, things of that nature, I mean, Thailand's going to come up. It's a for what you pay for a very developed country in that aspect. Bali's another big one. I think that's a little oversaturated at this point. But in terms of a day in the life, I mean, it's pretty normal. I rent an apartment, generally month to month leases, things of that nature. I get up, I study the markets, I make trades. It's normal work that I did in the U.S. I make YouTube videos, I go on people's channels. I work out, eat pretty good food. That's a nice thing about, nice thing about just reasonably priced good food that you can get in a lot of the world that you can't really get in the U.S. But I mean, I'm not going to knock the U.S. I mean, there's a lot of pros, pros and cons to everything. I mean, the U.S. is better at a hell of a lot of other things than a lot of other places are. You just got to see, from an individual standpoint, what's the best. For you individually. But no, I mean, it's not like that. I mean, it's just a generally typical kind of lifestyle, I mean, I would say I work between, 4 to 6 hours a day, probably, if you actually like focused work and reading charts, studying, what am I going to do with this portfolio, meetings with people and other things. And then the rest of it, a little bit of sightseeing, go to drink coffee, things of that nature. So yeah.
Cool. So I know in my own life, crypto, it changed my life drastically. The Probably that first bull run back in 2017, 18. And it wasn't like I made millions of dollars or anything, but it was what I consider a life-changing amount of money. But really it was like a mindset change, and then the bull run of
Mm.
2020, 21. How would you say crypto has changed your life being an investor, trader, whatever, in terms of like lifestyle? Like, how did you decide that you wanted to leave your comfort zone and start traveling the world? Was that because of crypto, or you always wanted to do that, or how did it play out?
I had traveled before crypto. I mean, I studied abroad when I was in college. I had been to Asia, when I was like 19, 20 with one of my friends. So, I mean, I had done the backpacking thing, before. It's not a thing that in this day and age, like, I mean, the only thing that would like be like really, if you're going to like rural areas, no one goes to and no one speaks a word of English, like that's something that's more challenging. And that's probably how, traveling was more 20, 30, 40 years ago before the iPhone. That's how a lot of it was. But in this day and age, nah, I don't think it's anything like that challenging overall. There are some annoyances with it, but yeah, I mean, like if you're talking about like life changing, like, yeah, obviously, source of income. But I think that, there's always going to be new opportunities. There's always going to be new things happening. So I think more of it is rather a mindset, of you and whether kind of finding what you're passionate about. Because, if you look at like every avenue, there's a lot of people, like just for some examples, people talk about, making a lot of money with, real estate investing, making a lot of money with AI, making a lot of money with, I don't know, what did it used to be coding, and then there's crypto and all these type of things like, you realize the majority of people with all of these things will not make that much money. You know what I mean? The majority, you kind of have to pick an avenue you want and kind of reframe your mindset and kind of, pick the thing that you like. And I mean, who knows? Maybe crypto won't be, as big, in the 2030s. Maybe in 10 years, there'll be something else, some other, kind of opportunities. So, I kind of take it one day at a time and just see, how things are progressing. I think the biggest thing that, you see a lot of people like the Warren Buffett crowd, the older crowd that doesn't really understand crypto. And as we were talking about before, you talk to a lot of people like that to a certain extent. And I mean, I think an important thing really is to adapt, really to adapt with, the new things because, crypto, the generation after us already, people that are probably like 10, 12 years old right now, when they're like in their 20s, 30s, like crypto is going to be viewed as like, as archaic as gold to them. It's kind of like, what's the next thing after that? So, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, there is I feel like there's such a generation gap right now between baby boomers and
Mhm.
then or would you be considered a millennial or are you younger?
I mean, I was born in 97, so I guess Gen Z, millennial. I don't know. Am I Gen Z? Maybe the start of Gen Z, I guess. I
The
don't
start,
know.
yeah. I just feel like there is this huge generation gap. I on my YouTube channel, I
Mhm.
started these kind of I call them educational videos, but like there's this one album called Digital Asset Guy Helps John, and it's an actual friend of mine who I know who asked me to help him with his crypto. He's a baby
Mm.
boomer, and so anyway in real life, when I started helping him with his crypto, it went kind of like it was kind of challenging and it was kind of funny, actually. And then one day I was like, John, would you mind if I recorded this and put it on my YouTube channel and we kind of acted it out, did it again? And anyway, it's just stuff like trying to write down his words and he's trying to look at the little, we're setting up a Ledger Nano S and he's saying, how do you
Mhm.
see this? It's so small. And I just wanted to make this video series to show how, maybe cold storage is not the best option for baby boomers. Maybe they want to get a crypto custodian like I Trust Capital or, and um, so it's just really interesting to me how the generations, but you're right. Yeah, the next generation crypto may be boring to them. That's crazy to think about.
That's always kind of, yeah. I mean, that's always how it would be, how it is, how it would be. And I think, the most important thing that, it sounds like kind of obvious, actually understand, what you're investing in. Because like we're getting to the point where there's so many people that have tried to make it big with altcoins they don't understand, even meme coins. Like,
Oh, man.
and I think that hurts people. Like generally, if you understand something pretty well, and generally, I mean, for your perspective and what you've done really well on, obviously hodling. And I think that the most important thing of that is just having the courage to hold through, obviously obviously Ethereum and altcoins. Well, Ethereum was the big one that really got killed. What was at the bottom in April? And, a lot of people were like kind of panicking there. And I think just having the courage to hold through that reap some huge rewards because now we're below an all-time high for Ethereum currently, but we did make a new all-time high. So, I think a lot of that just has to do with the courage to hold. And if you understand what the hell you're holding and you have a future perspective and you're able to kind of see through all the noise and all the people saying that it's going to go to zero when it's really at the bottom, that's kind of what strengthens your case. Now, I'm sure you've kind of dealt with that and have a lot of experience with that throughout the years, right?
Well, I got into crypto mining Ethereum in my dorm room or my college apartment, whatever you want to call it, in
Mm,
2016. It started out like a video game, it was just, oh, it's getting us money, it goes up a little
mm,
bit, and I just it was crazy. I remember telling my
And
friend,
you didn't have to pay for electricity. It was included
right,
probably in your, yeah.
right. And if we
Yeah.
would have known what we were really
Did you
doing.
get in trouble for that? Using up too much power or anything?
No,
No.
there were
Oh,
people with gaming. They were gaming all the time. It just looked
okay.
like a gaming computer, and I'm sure it used some electricity. It got really hot, but it kept the room warm in the winter. But yeah, I've held most of my Ethereum. I haven't sold it. I've held most of it from 2016. Sold a
Wow.
little
I'm,
bit, you know.
I'm just curious, what was mining like back then when you were? I've never met anyone who mined Ethereum. I don't think. You can't even do it anymore. It's proof of stake now. So,
Right. I'll tell you,
how much Ethereum were you able to mine a month or whatever doing that?
like tens probably. But at the end, right before
What do you mean tens? What would tens
tens
meaning?
of Ethereum, 10, 20,
A
30.
tenth of Ethereum. Okay.
No, no,
Oh wait,
10 Ethereum, 20 Ethereum.
10 full Ethereum. So a ton of money in today's, yeah, 40 grand a month. Yeah.
It was like at $20 a coin back in 2016.
Yeah, wow.
And we were like, we did so much silly stuff. We were selling it as we were mining it. I remember one
Mm,
friend was the CTO. He's the tech guy. I'm kind of was the CEO. And there's a video, it's a
mm,
short on my YouTube channel you can watch where we're upgrading our miner, putting a new card on it in 2016. And his girlfriend at the time, now wife, is like going, "You guys are ridiculous. We're going to be here another hour for your video game." And it's like really incredible footage. But anyway, yeah, if we would have known what we were doing and got the good graphics card, like some liquid cooled, more Radeon cards, we could have been mining, tens of Ethereum each month for that whole year. But right as we kind of got serious, and I was like, I remember saying, I think, what if Ethereum went to 100 a coin, man? It's at $25, but I think it could happen. And I just remember we were talking about that. And then in a couple months it was at 1200. Like it was crazy
mm,
thing. But yeah, it was GPU mining and very tedious and that kind of thing.
mm. So you had to be pretty tech savvy to do that back in the day. You had to be,
Excuse me, I'm dealing with
you're good.
allergies. They're the worst in the fall for me. I actually was not very tech savvy at all, but I was kind of business minded. My friend was the tech guy. I just kind of put up the money and had the vision. I mean, he did too, but yeah, he taught me a lot of the stuff, how to do it, but he was the real, this guy is a genius. This guy, my friend who helped me, he's like one of the weirdest people in the world, so
Mm,
unbelievably introverted, like doesn't want to
mm,
see anyone do anything, but he's fascinating to me, even though he drives me crazy. But anyway, he was the
mm,
tech savvy guy. So.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was quite a thing. And then, of course, I was like an Ethereum maximalist. And then I found out a bit about Bitcoin. Like a couple months later, I saw John McAfee on Good Morning America talking about
Yeah.
Bitcoin, saying the network will grow and it will reach $1 million. It is an inevitability and all that. And I was like, who is this guy? What's Bitcoin? I remember asking my friend, what's Bitcoin when we were mining Ethereum next to me. And
Oh,
he
that's
goes,
wild.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know about. Okay, interesting. Wow.
I didn't know about it. Then, of course, one thing led to another. I went to YouTube University, started really getting educated, and then I found XRP, and I at first didn't like it and believed it wasn't a real crypto, all that. And then I sent some one time, bought a little bit, and I was like, this is crazy fast. How was it already there before I could click to the next tab? And then I went down that rabbit hole, and here we are. Been a wild ride.
Yeah. Well, history was made. Yeah.
So, yeah, so let's of course I love talking about crypto and I'll ask you some questions about the market sentiment maybe towards the end. The thing that I'm really interested in though is like how crypto changes our lives in other aspects. How do you deal with family, friends, and dating, being on the road as a crypto trader?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, challenges being away from your family, things of that nature. I don't plan on doing that forever. But yeah, there's that. If you're if you're not, you got to be. I think for a lifestyle like just traveling and living in a different country, you have to be like independent in a lot of ways. Um, I think that there's other things you need to be careful with. Especially you hear stories about people in Latin America being robbed or things of that nature. I think there was a guy I heard about. I mean, you don't know what to believe sometimes. But I think there was a guy I heard about who lost 500 grand worth of crypto, like in a hardware wallet. Like he was robbed and kind of forced to give over his keys and all that. But you kind of wonder, he was kind of being kind of dumb to kind of tell people he had that on a hardware wallet. You know what I mean? So there are things you got to be careful with. That wouldn't really happen to you in Asia. That's kind of the thing too, because you look in the West, there's a lot of problems with homelessness. There's more crime. What was that? The latest thing, obviously, Charlie Kirk getting killed, but that's always been, obviously shootings and all that. But then what's worse is like people on subways, stuff like that. Like, what was that woman in North Carolina? Ukrainian woman got killed. So, you're seeing more of that, those issues in the West, Western Europe as well, to a certain extent. You don't really have those problems in Asia. There's other problems and other things that, do happen, but that's what you got to keep in mind. So, as a person, who's from the West, living in Asia, there's going to be a lot of, you're very exotic here. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people are going to want to make friends with you. A lot of people are going to want to get to know you. Most people have very good intentions, but you still need to, obviously be careful and, work around those things. But, I can speak very highly of it. People I think are generally, you see in the West, there's definitely, when I talk to some people, in Asia that I meet that have like lived in America, and there's a good amount, especially in the big cities, and they're kind of like, yeah, man, people in the West are just seem so depressed sometimes and just so serious. And then here, it's a little bit more satisfaction with life, a little bit more happiness in some ways. So I think too, like, and not to like knock the West or all that, but, like American happiness overall has kind of been, I don't think America is not even in the top 20 anymore for happiest countries. So you do see the difference, but there's pros and cons. I don't want to like, don't think I'm like all anti-West, anti-America. I mean, you got to assess it, from your own standpoint and your own ways. So, yeah, but I would say overall, most of those things have been better. Most of those things have been better living abroad. So, yeah.
That's cool. All right. Very interesting. What about dating? I know it's kind of like, well, why does he want to talk about that? But I just, crypto changing my life in the ways it has, it's made, for me personally, it's made dating very, very difficult. And I talked to other crypto people who are like, no, man, it's made mine better. But for whatever reason, I've just had struggles where I thought, we were going to get engaged or whatever. We'd been together 3 years. And
Yeah.
then for whatever reason, when things got good with crypto, it just, I don't know, killed the relationship where I was like, I can't do this anymore or whatever. How does that, and then if you don't have a comment about it, that's fine too. But I'm always
No, I
interested.
have a call. Yeah. Well, I would say, in the West, and if you look at like Elon Musk tweets, like obviously child birth rate is very low in the West, Europe, America, very low child birth rates. It's even low in a lot of parts of Asia too, which is kind of crazy too. Like it's low everywhere, but there's still, people are still having kids at generally a younger age in other parts of the world. So you got to look at that statistic. I would say, in the West, when it comes to crypto and dating, I think like dating in the West, like a lot of it is, I feel like a lot of people don't like see the vision of kind of crypto. Like a lot of times people will, if you're dating somebody, they'll be like, kind of challenging it. Oh, it's just, you're just, you're full of crap. You didn't really make this money with this, yada, 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 and all those type of things. I feel like there's kind of that aspect. And I feel like Western culture, in America, everybody's trying to kind of one up each other to a certain extent. Like a lot of people try to get the Rolexes and all that type of thing. I mean, it depends where you are. I mean, it's probably not as much where you are. I think you're in Ohio, right? So, rather as if you're in like Miami, LA, New York City. So there's like kind of that very, superficial kind of culture. There's also the TikTok culture in the West too. And the thing that's funny too, I was just thinking about like, I've lived in Brickell, Miami. That's where I've lived, a lot, the majority of my like adult life in Miami. And like the funny thing I noticed like in Brickell is like whenever I'm walking around in Brickell, like almost every day I'll just notice like it'll be like a woman between the ages of like, let's say 20 to like 35 or whatever. And she'll always be like angry, like yelling on her phone or whatever, walking around. And I'm like, I was just thinking the other day, like having lived in like Latin America, having lived in Asia, I've been in, Asia for a few months. I haven't really lived in America for, more than a month straight in the last like 6 to 8 months. And I haven't seen that happen like once, not even one time outside of like the US. So it's a different culture. Like, I'm not saying that's like bad or anything, but it's a very, different dating culture. I mean, a lot of people, I think, what's the demographic? Like, if you're age over 30 and you're still single in America, like the majority of time you won't end up ever getting married or having children. Like, it's a high demographic. Like, a lot of people are, kind of staying single. And a lot of people, I think when you have a more developed country, there's the government kind of provides for people through, retirement, you get Social Security, Medicare, all these type of things. And like, there's less of a need, in a lot of other places where there's less money, there's more of a need for that. It also has to do with the media. Like I would say in a lot of like Eastern culture, like people, like, I mean, it's politically correct to say this, but like if you're overweight in like what Eastern culture, they'll kind of tell you you're overweight. Like if you want to get married and have kids, like you're gonna have to take this seriously. You're gonna have to lose weight and present yourself better. Where in kind of Western culture, it's not 100%, but like it's somebody who's objectively, overweight, objectively below average, and they think they're, the greatest thing in the world. Like that's not, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are, kind of, Western culture doesn't really tell you the truth in a lot of ways. And I think Eastern culture kind of puts more people into perspective. They actually kind of know their value more. So I would say like, that's just, if you just look at numbers like child birth rate and all those type of things, like obviously it's going to be easier to meet someone higher quality, meet someone that you like more in a lot of, other places, I would say. The thing too is like, I mean, you notice in the US, like a lot of, there's like one like TikTok I watched, like, a lot of these, girls have nothing against it, but a lot of them have like a lot of tattoos, nose rings, those type of things. I mean, America, what is it? 70% of people are overweight. So if you don't want those things, look statistically, other countries are going to have less of that. If you're looking for a partner like that, nothing against those things, like nothing against those things. Everybody has their own thing. And the last thing I'll say here is like divorce rate in America is like what, 55%. Divorce rate in Europe is up to 60% in some countries. I think in Southeast Asia, it's like 10%. I think Vietnam is like 8%. So, I mean, I'm more of a numbers guy. I would kind of look at the numbers. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I just, I don't even know. I don't know. It's interesting. I've had it where you're always talking crypto. I don't like that. I've had ones like that. And then I've had relationships where they love crypto, and it's a gold
Hmm.
digger situation. I've dealt with that. And then I've had it where I thought it was going to work. And then, I'll get an ultimatum. It's time to sell your cryptos so we can buy a house and then get married or whatever. And it's like, I don't know if this is the time to do that in 2019 when I get into situations where I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is just taking me away from my mission. And so I'm always interested to talk with other crypto investors about how these things affect your life too. So let's see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the market a little bit since that's your kind of main bag. Do you believe that the 4-year cycle is still valid with Bitcoin in the market?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like when you look at that, like you could argue it's never existed to begin with because every 4-year cycle is a little bit different. People will find, oh no, it peaked out here a month or two earlier or that. I think every cycle is valid. You know what I mean? Even the 80-year cycle of like a world power and empire, I think every cycle is valid. The problem is that it's the same thing as saying like the market's going to crash every 8 to 15 years. Like that's a pretty big, or every 8 to 12 years. I mean, that's a pretty big that's a pretty big difference. Like there's not going to be the exact thing. So I think if you factor in inflation, Bitcoin didn't even make the new all-time high until the end of kind of 2024, when it's supposed to in the 4-year cycle. If you look at a few, charts like basically altcoins versus Bitcoin, they will likely, if you look at previous cycles similar to the end of 2017 into 2018, they will likely do very well against Bitcoin in the next few months to get to market sentiment. So I think that, if you look at the big thing is Bitcoin always, in terms of 4-year cycle, always peaks 18 months after the halving. That would bring us to a peak in October. So, one more month, it would make sense, if you can get 130K, 150K in about a month. And then I think some alts could ride for a month to 2 months after, similar to 2017 into 2018. I think it's more like that cycle rather than the last one. I think the last cycle would have been more of a peak, for alts like against Bitcoin later on. But I think Elon Musk and a lot of these people like that kind of made alts go crazier earlier than they should have. And, I think you'll see, I mean, the big thing everybody's asking about is alts right now. And I think you'll see you got a good shot of most alts, not like garbage, but most like name brand alts doing like a 2x, a 3x
Mhm.
in the next couple months. So yeah, XRP, what is XRP at right now?
About $3.
Yeah, everyone gets mad, but I think the top, I could see $4 to $6. That's what I'm looking at. Hopefully $6. Yeah.
I'd be happy with $4 to $6. I'm also a big fan of Cardano, XLM.
Yeah.
I've got a whole bunch of silly stuff from back in the beginning as well. One thing I wanted to ask you about. What's it like going on Paul Barron Network? I see you on there and I'm just like, oh, there's Evan talking the charts. And I just thought that was so cool. I saw you at XRP Vegas, where you were live on the air with Paul. What's it like? And we are coming up on our 10 minutes, last 10 minutes of the interview. It's given me a warning.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah I've been on it's crazy because I remember I first was on Paul's channel where many years ago, well not many, I think 2021 when he had like under 100K subscribers. So I have known him for a while and it's pretty incredible how big he blew up. How big he blew up. I used to live kind of near where he used to do. I would come in the studio in South Florida and kind of do the show. So I've known him for a long time. It is one of the biggest channels, if not the biggest channel now for crypto. I guess it depends how you look at it. Everybody's got a different opinion on that. But yeah, no, I'm really proud of what Paul is. Incredible. Sometimes it's surreal how much he's grown, how much the channel's gotten, so big. So it's always an honor, to kind of be able to do TA on there and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other people I've collabed too. So I'm always open to, obviously, you're just trying to get your name out there as much as possible in this game. But then again, I don't really, I mainly focus kind of on my own channel, my own thing too. So, you just let things move, kind of let things flow, Huawei, as they say in Taoism. So yeah.
That's cool. All right, some fun questions. Top three favorite movies. Go.
Favorite movies? Oh man. Let's see, Fight Club. I mean, that Dark Knight, if you're a Batman fan, that one was really the first one. Yeah, that's like considered one of the best movies ever. Oh, what was that? Oh, what was the other? There's one I'm forgetting about that I really liked. Shoot. Fight Club is up there. Oh man, I don't want to like waste or thinking about it. It'll come to me. It'll come to me.
All right, cool. Let's see. Oh, another question I like to ask people. How do you want to be remembered when you're dead and gone, Evan? I know kind of a tough one, but like in a sentence.
Well, I mean, obviously you want to be remembered very positively. I don't know if that's kind of asking, like, do you want to be famous or not? I think there's a lot of, if you're really famous, there's a lot of negatives, like, especially in the US or even other places, look at what happened to Charlie Kirk. You got to be careful, if you're famous enough, somebody could shoot you. I mean, John Lennon got shot, Reagan got shot, Trump got shot. Like, it seems like, if you're famous enough, somebody's going to try to shoot you, it seems like. So there's a lot of negatives with that. So, I mean, obviously remembered positively. I don't know if I want to be super, super famous where everybody remembers me, but, it'd be nice to have, some people be respected, remembered in the game. I mean, if you want to be remembered in 1,000 years from now, you got to be like Trump level or somebody really, really, really big, but that comes with its own negatives. So, yeah.
Well, cool. Uh, let's see. Yeah, we're about up on our end of our interview. These things always go so fast, it's always such a pleasure to
Yeah.
talk to somebody else who's kind of in my world. Well, I guess we'll wrap
I'd
up.
be curious. What are some of your price predictions? What do you think the market's going to do in the next couple months?
You know, I've kind of in my own group, digital asset guy on Facebook. That's kind of where, for whatever reason, where I'm a hit is on Facebook. I got my like 5,000 followers, not that many. But anyway, I put out that
Yeah.
I thought Bitcoin's top might be at 117,000. I just I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
not a technical guy like you or blockchain backer, but for some reason, I just thought that, and it looks like that is some kind of level. I'd love to be wrong and see us go to 130. I think XRP, I think it would make a lot of sense to see it up around 6, 8, $10. That would be really great. But then with
Mm,
all the 18 ETFs, I just, wouldn't surprise me to see it go higher. I think Cardano, I think I'd love to see a $5 Cardano. I think XLM usually is about a quarter of XRP's price. I don't know the actual, it could be a silly way I'm figuring it, but I would love to
mm,
see $2 XLM. Ethereum, my first baby. For some reason, I just see it going to around 7 or 8,000 if we have an alt season like 2017. That's just what I think. And I think with the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, I think that's going to do nothing but help. But we'll probably see that maybe within the decade around 2030. I thought it was super interesting how Charles Hoskinson, founder of Cardano, he just came out and put on X, we'll see $250,000 Bitcoin within a year because
mm.
of the Genius Act. That guy knows stuff. I mean, he was just in Washington today for the meeting on the Bitcoin Reserve. When I see people like that who I know they know things that we don't all know, and they're just posting something like that, that just keeps me it gives me an open mind, that there could be things we
Mm,
don't know. So that's kind of my sentiment. I think inflation's here to stay. So the US dollar, yeah, it may slow down, but inflation's never going to reverse or go away. And I think
mm,
crypto will be here as long as we have the internet. Yeah, there will be different coins and shuffling of positions, but I think in our lifetime, hence well, I put my entire retirement into crypto. I believe in it more than fiat currencies and government promises.
sure. Cool.
Well, we're
I mean,
right
that
on
sounds
the
good.
edge of our time here. So I just enjoyed every minute of this, Evan, and I look forward to seeing where you're at in the world. And I hope to see you at another convention. Real quick, any conventions that you'll be at in the near
I'll
future?
be at Token. Go ahead. Yeah, I'll be at Token 2049, October 1st, 2nd in Singapore. You should come through.
Cool. Hey, I might have some travel questions for you at
Uh,
some point because at some point I want to travel the world. So, okay. Well, this was so much fun, and I'll talk to you soon, Evan. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks.
See you.
Yeah.